Right, okay, let's see if you guys can hear me now. Right, let's have a look here. The chat, top chat. Okay, so who have we got here? Where is, okay, it works. Believingbruce, hello, working now. All right, so guys, this may be a little bit hectic due to the fact that I am having to hold my microphone. Let's see if I can set it up on something. Yeah, True Geordie started off with an iPhone on his ironing board. So I'm sure if True Geordie can do this, then I can improvise, adapt, and overcome as well. In fact, I'll just put it there. That's fine. Your mic had the coronavirus. Ethan, it probably did. It probably did. So how many people? Oh, we've got 17 people. That's quite good there. There you go. Yeah. So, I mean, has anybody else, just before we get into this, has anybody else tried live streaming before? And then when they've went to do it, the sort of microphones just packed up, both on the laptop and on at a USB microphone as well. So I don't know if anyone else has tried that before, but it was all working. So just come on to the live chat. Give me a little introduction of who you are, what age you are, and where you're from, just so I can get an idea of the audience, please. Let's have a look on this live chat. So yeah, where you're from and how old are you, just so I know where to pitch this at. So you've got 27 people. Danny 41 from Glasgow. Henry's 15 from Hampshire. We've got some information coming through now. Essex, Bradford, Canada. We've got someone from Canada. We've got Jared from Florida. I'm Nick, 28, and from the northeast of England. London, St Helens, Robbie Wardle, Newcastle. Robbie, if I shout a bit louder, you'll probably be able to hear me. Latvia, Los Angeles. Wowzers. This is fantastic. All right, so let's get started. We've got an opportunity here, and this is really why I wanted to come and do this tonight, where there's obviously the main reason, let's get to the main reason why I'm doing it. I received lots of messages on my Instagram and on my Twitter around people feeling, let's just call it fearful. Yeah, people are feeling fearful at the moment around what's happening with the coronavirus, COVID-19, whatever you want to call it. So I thought actually there may be an opportunity, rather than trying to message people individually, more so to try to share some information collectively as a group on this, which is creating fear. It's definitely creating people's psychological safety to be wobbled. Currently, I am helping global organizations connect with their people and trying to put people at the core of their decision-making processes. And I thought, well, actually, there's a load of people, which is why I started the Believingbruce channel off, who haven't got access to big corporate support programs and employee engagement programs and all this type of stuff. So that's what I'm trying to do, and that's why I'm here tonight, as in to share some stuff, because really the coronavirus and all of the impact that it's having, it all boils down to fear for a lot of people. Now, where that fear comes from doesn't really matter. If we are seeing that it's fearful, it could be, not going to be able to pay your bills on time. That can be fear. It could be walking down a dark alley. That can be fear. It can be going to ask that girl or boy out who's standing at the bar who you've always wanted to, but that can be fearful. So again, it all boils down to this emotion that we call fear. So this is what I want to do tonight, is I want to open and give you the opportunity, if you will, to ask the questions that you've got, around Corona. How is it impacting you? That type of angle. But then again, utilizing the knowledge and experience and expertise that I've got, if there's anything to do with fear in particular. Now, this could be public speaking. This could be going for a job interview. This could be anything really that you want. The idea of it is to share the knowledge on this live stream. Now again, hopefully, and I think I might do this on a weekly basis. I think I'm going to do it on a Thursday, and I'm going to call it the Thursday Thought, just so people can help to get inside of their heads and their hearts. So I think I'll do it on a weekly basis, and hopefully I'll have the proper setup working by next week. But we're going to cuff it tonight. This is what we're going to do. So what I'd like to ask you people now is that if you've got any specific questions around about Corona, around about fear, whatever it may be, ask away in the chat comments there. I'll pick one up and then I'll answer them, because pretty much here we go, is that the answer that I give one person will be relevant to the rest of you. So if you have got any questions that you want answered, please do. And I'll wait for the questions to pop up in the chat now. Okay, good question. How does an unphysical concept such as fear manifest itself physically? All right, so thank you very much for that question. And it's important to actually acknowledge that what you're saying there is correct. It's like unphysical. You can't grab it. You can't touch it. You can't go and pick it up and put it in your pocket. So the way that it's so from a psychological state, as we call it, to a physiological state, it goes through a series of processes. So we've got in here, the brain. If you see here, this is my, if anyone's from Newcastle, Wiedersehen pet. I am ready for the lockdown with my Wiedersehen pet DVDs. So what the brain does is that through part of a process in different areas of the brain, it detects what we will generically call a threat. Okay. Now, this could be any type of threat. It could be you're going to do the 100 meters at school and you've got people watching you. You're going to do an exam. You're going to take a driving test. All of this type of stuff, all right? So you've got either an external stimuli, as we call it, or an internal stimuli. Now, the thing with fear is it doesn't even have to be present. It doesn't even, the thing doesn't have to be there. You have to have the lion in front of you. You don't have to have the big bully at school who's going to beat you up, or whatever is triggering your fear. It could be an emotional memory from part of the brain called the hippocampus, where you've had a negative situation or some emotions attached to you in the past, which has created like an emotional lock, an emotional KPI, something that it reminds you of an unhelpful event. But let's just look at the physical thing first. So you're walking through the forest and out there comes the grizzly bear. All right. Now, again, this has never happened to me, so I'm just ad-libbing here. And if it has happened to you, let me know in the chat comments. But let's just say you're going through the forest in Canada and all of a sudden you come across the grizzly bear. Now, our brain is directly facilitated. It's got a process. It's got connections where whatever you are feeling scared of at that particular moment, it comes through a part of the brain at the front, the frontal cortex, all right, the thalamus. And what the thalamus does is it directs the conscious thinking or the unconscious reactions to different parts of the brain. So the moment you see that bear, the thalamus will send that signal, will send that information to a thing called the amygdala. All right, so this is how we're going from the physiological state, how it's impacting us physically, but it comes from the psychological state. So the thalamus sends it to the amygdala. Now the amygdala, ladies and gentlemen, the amygdala is the fight or flight center. This is where we get the adrenaline, or at least is where the adrenaline dump starts, to be more specific and accurate. So you see the bear, the thalamus picks that up. It sends that information to the amygdala. The amygdala straight away takes over the body's reactions. It's autonomous. You haven't got any choice about this. So again, you've probably been in a tent once and your foot's touched the guide rope of the tent, or you've seen something that you weren't expecting and it's made you jump. It's why pranks, the millions of prank videos on YouTube, it plays on the amygdala, it plays on the type reaction. Yeah. So the amygdala then takes over. And then what the amygdala does, it sends a message to a part of the brain called the hypothalamus. Now the hypothalamus, again, this is starting to give you the reason why we physically feel it. The hypothalamus is where our emotions start to come into play, our feelings, our hormone regulation starts to kick in. And then the hypothalamus in conjunction with the hippocampus. So that's where the memories are stored. It will look at said grizzly bear in the forest. And it will start talking by the pituitary gland to the adrenal glands. The adrenal glands, whoosh, the adrenaline starts pumping into the body, and there you've got it. All right? Your body is primed for action. And when your body is primed for action, boom, that's why you jump. That's why you scream. That's why you cower. That's why you run. That's why you freeze. That's why you flight. All of these things come into it. But that process there is what we get from that physiological state, so a thought, if you will, to comes through, so the body starts reacting to it, to produce the hormones to react with the body in the way that the muscles get ready for action, which is where you get the physical state. So now that can be what's called acute. In an instant, the grizzly bears come out here. But what we can have, for example, with the coronavirus, is where you've got a perceived threat. And it's not the grizzly bear in front of you, so it's not 100% death, if you will. For some people, it definitely is. And it tends to be when it's impact them, or when they're on the way to hospital, or when they're on the ventilator, etc. You know, when you know shit is happening, when you know shit's for real. But what we've got here is it's almost an unknown quantity. Yeah, it's almost an unknown quantity where we are perusing the information. But more so than that, we are being bombarded via the news reports, via radio, like the incessant, constant, information that's been drilled into us from all angles. I mean, you can't even turn the telly or the radio or any type of social media on without being bombarded by this has happened, or the numbers are up, or the number of deaths have risen. So even though we can't see it, as in there's no grizzly bear in front of us, the exact same process starts. So you will take in that fearful situation. Now this could be, again, going for a job interview. This could be going to ask somebody out, trying to get into a relationship with somebody. This could be anything that represents or introduces an anxious state within your physical being. But it all comes down to the thalamus, the amygdala reacting, the amygdala talking to the hypothalamus talking to the hippocampus. All of those start talking to the pituitary gland. The pituitary gland starts talking to the adrenal glands, and that's where you get the reaction from. So hopefully that there, again, just explaining a little bit about how this bad boy works, yeah, can help you become more in control of your thoughts and feelings. And by that, is like, I think what a lot of people have to do at the moment. In fact, let's have a look at the comments here. Let's have a look about the comments. Just in the comments, who's been impacted by the coronavirus in a fearful way, like sort of impacting your mental health, or anything that you're finding scary about what's going on in the past couple of weeks? I'll say that because obviously this is what the live stream was for, but I will get into other comments as well. Let's have a look. So we've got Gavin, okay, so Gavin's scared for his father. Gavin, give me a little bit more information about your father, please. Yeah, Abdullah, just worried for the elderly in my family. Again, this is obviously from the information that's coming in on a constant basis from the media. Ethan's scared about his mental health as well. Yeah, Abdullah suffers from strokes. But, I think one of the issues, or one of the points of concern here, what we've got, is that the elderly, and I think it's the over 70s as far as I'm aware, so Gavin's had a stroke and a heart attack, yeah, is that generally, okay, now I'll talk about a psychological state called catastrophization in a moment. And if I do wander off, please feel free to give me a nudge, because I am aware that I do like a good waffle. as the magnanimous Joe Weller has called his podcast. But I do like a good waffle. So when we talk about the elderly, out of all the data, now remember, this virus is brand new, and you'll know from the Believingbruce videos that I do in relation to body language or anything. What we're always trying to do is dig into the data, all right? Biology doesn't lie. What does the data say? And what you've got here is the data on this very new virus, this very, very new virus, it's limited because it is such a new virus, and because it's limited and we haven't got the information, that can sometimes really, how can I say, it can really play havoc with our imagination. And because we haven't got the answers, because we don't know what the answers are, or somebody else can't give us the answers. And again, this is, relevant to any fearful situation. If you don't know what's behind the door, so, you go to the cinema and you hear the music and you've got your popcorn and you're there at a movie that's a sort of horror or a thriller, and the music starts ramping up and the camera starts coming in closer and closer and closer to the door, and you get scared because you don't know what's behind the door. That can be really fearful because we don't know what lies behind the door. And that's what's happening with this virus. Because we don't know what lies behind the door, we're making up all types of stories in our head. And because it's such a new virus, there's not enough data there. There is some data, but there's not lots of data. It's not a common illness that we can all refer to or that we're used to. It's something brand new. So it's almost like we're sitting in the movies. We've got that horror story going on, and we're just not too sure how to deal with it. But the data that is there is that, yes, the over 70s would definitely be in what's called the high risk group. But also people with underlying conditions are in the high risk group. Now, this might be asthma, this might be heart conditions, this might be people with cancer, low type of immune systems, and such like. Now, there is, so I'm just going to take a drink here. Now, there is people out there, and I'm seeing it on Facebook myself, that are in a position of, let's call it, they're outside of the data. So today, I think I seen a lady, she was 35 or 36, my wife showed me, and she is on a ventilator. She's on some type of ventilator. And people are jumping on that to say that, well, look, this lady, she's not in the high-risk group. She hasn't had any pre-existing illnesses, her immune system isn't low, etc., and she's in there. And that's correct, all right? That is correct. But what the data suggests is that on average, the amount of people who are being really negatively impacted, who dying, let's just sort of cut to the chase and lay the cards on the table, who are dying through this are in either over 70s, they've got pre-existing conditions. So whilst there might be individuals who sit outside of this group, outside of the data, let's not lose track of that. The majority of the data is correct. So just because there's one person, and again, there may be more than one person, but just because I'm aware of one person who died or who's been negatively impacted, who sits, 35, young, fit, sports, etc., etc., for that one person, there's like maybe 20,000 people who actually fit the data profile as well. So yes, it is a worrying time for elderly people. My mum's mid-70s as well. I live about 30 miles away from my mum. She lives by herself. My dad passed away a number of years ago. So when people are saying about the elderly, I get that. I've got those thoughts as well. But if you go off the data, the only thing that you can do is follow that government guideline. So I'm self-isolating with my wife and my 2 children. The reason why we're doing that is my wife's got bad asthma and she's only got 1 kidney, so she falls into this high-risk group. We're in a big area in here in Newcastle, in England. So because of that, we can't then take the risk to go up to see my mum. So I've had to ask her neighbours to make sure that she's got food, toiletries, etc. So like when people are saying I'm scared for the elderly, well, I'm wary too, because my mum sits in that particular group, that particular data group. And there's really nothing you can do apart from to try to help them self-isolate. Now, I could go up to see my mum because as a son, and the relationship that I'm aware that, some people haven't got that relationship with their parents, but me, I have, and I want to go up there. I want to make sure that she's all right. But me satisfying my own needs would potentially put my mum in danger in the long term. So I think with elderly people, it is one of those things where you have got to maybe do what's right rather than what you want to do, and accept the fact that this coronavirus is here. Accept the fact that we have got to change the way we interact with each other, the way we live, even the way we go about our daily lives, in order to protect ourselves and the people who we love as well. And if that means that, not seeing them for a while or not nipping in for a coffee in order to potentially not give them the virus, it can be hard transaction, like as in the moment, but often, it is probably the right thing to do. And that's what I've got to keep reminding myself, because my natural urge is to go and see my mum and, nip in and take care of her. But it's probably not the best thing to do. So hopefully, Gavin, that gives you a little bit of space to, yes, it's right to be worried about the elderly. It's right to be concerned. They do fall into the high, the sort of high category group. But what I would say is, basically do what you need to do. And the data is telling you, like, the more your father can be self-isolated, away from community, away from people picking them up, at least in the short term, then, he's got less chance of picking up the virus. Again, it's limited data, but that is what the data says. So any other questions of coronavirus or fear itself? Sorry, if you've put a question in, put it in again, because on my phone here, it's pretty hard to try and keep up with it. What do you think about those college kids that are partying and still want to go to Coachella? Ethan, come back on that one. That is a good one there. So yeah, I get kids want to party. And again, remember, and I would like you to reflect on this as well, as in sometimes it takes us a little bit of embracement of the reality of what we're facing. And for me, I'm going to explain it like this. I hope my wife's not listening. She's probably at the door there. All right. But when my wife fell pregnant, I spent 9 months telling everybody, yes, I'm going to be a dad. All right, I'm going to be a dad. But then I hadn't actually realized that I was going to be a dad. Kelly was pregnant. She was feeling it. She was carrying the baby. She was, getting the aches and pains in the morning, sickness and all this type of stuff. Whereas for me, I didn't really do anything much during those 9 months. Yes, she was sometimes a little bit more emotional, but it wasn't real. And I think this is what's happening now, because I remember when 9 months I spent saying I'm going to be a dad, and it was only when Kelly's waters broke that I thought, shit, I'm going to be a dad. Oh my God, here it's real. And it's what I call a critical point. It's what you see in boxing and MMA as well. Sometimes competitions, any type of competition, whereas people know that the date's coming on when they've got to perform, and however you want to classify perform, but there is a performance. Could be a boxing fight, could be MMA, could be skating on ice, whatever you want. Could be singing, could be playing your violin. But as that date looms closer, it becomes what we call critical. As in, that date's not going to move, and it appears. And that's exactly what happened with me when I was a dad for the first time. When a waters broke, it's like, whoa, I've had 9 months to prepare, but all of a sudden I feel like I've just been hit in the head with a sledgehammer, and it's come true. And I think this is what's happened, not just, young adults going to Coachella. We're seeing it in London today, so the pubs and clubs here are shutting from midnight tonight. Boris Johnson, the Prime Minister, said on the news before, they are all being enforced to shut down. So I don't just think it's young adults. But it's like, because it's not real, because it's not impacting you, it's sometimes very hard. And again, it's what I call beautifully human. It's not a flaw. It is not a, it's not a negative. It really is about being human. And people often say this, like people who smoke. I don't know if anybody who's dialing in at the moment smokes. But there's often, if you could see the smoke going into your lungs, and the damage that it was causing, if you were transparent and you could see all the tar going in, then a lot of people probably wouldn't smoke. But because you can't see it, it doesn't seem that real. And that's what we've got with this coronavirus, because we're all going around our daily lives. we are hearing, or at least the majority of us are hearing about somebody who's got it, or like a news report about somebody who's got it, but we haven't. It's not affected me. I'm sitting in my room now, admittedly my laptop hasn't worked, but I'm on my phone talking to you lovely people, having a can of Diet Coke. So it's not real. And what we tend to do is, a human race, we tend to be very reactive. Yeah, and maybe you'll agree with this, maybe you won't, let us know in the chat. But as a human race, we tend to be reactive, as in we wait till somebody either gets hurt or dies until we react differently. Something's got to happen on a major scale for us to then realise, oh, it could happen. And again, we've got examples of this with Corona. So we knew in China that it was appearing, this was months ago. But because it wasn't here on our shores, that's why there's been a delayed reaction. That's why there's, it's almost been a bit of voyeurism. Yeah, watching people in the car park and say, we've been putting our head over the wall looking at China and it's coming, but we didn't react to it until it was almost on our doorsteps. So this type of behaviour, this type of reaction here, you sort of mentioned the young adults going to Coachella. It's what we do as a human race. It's not helpful, especially when you're trying to contain something, when you're trying to prevent something, but it's definitely what we do. And now obviously what we're seeing is the cases in the UK is rising. The government is now taking more what we call reactive measures rather than proactive measures. And hopefully over the next 2, 3, 4 weeks, that containment, that reactive type state that we find ourselves now in could work. And again, when I say it could work, I'm not even sure the specificity of what I'm trying to explain. Hopefully the cases go down, the disease dies a death itself, the virus dissipates. But definitely what we're seeing, with Coachella and people in the pubs in London, etc., because it's not here, we don't feel it, it's not hurting us, we will keep going until it does cause some type of pain, and I'm going to use that word pain very specifically, and then once the pain is here, then we'll start reacting to it, which is often, we talk about bolting the gate when the horse is already gone. That's what we tend to do. So there was hopefully that answers that question there. There was a guy about, was it PTSD? PTSD is something that I'm very, very passionate about. So if you could put your PTSD based question back in the chat here, that would be good. And again, if you're watching, and if it'd be really handy if you could give us a like, a sort of thumbs up on there. I'm not sure how that impacts the chats, but it's always just good to see if you think that I'm adding value. The bow ties are looking good, by the way. Thank you very much. What do I think of everyone panic buying? Again, Robbie, good question. What do I think of everybody panic buying? Have you been panic buying? So what we've got going on with the panic buying is a thing called self-preservation based behaviours. Yeah, self-preservation based behaviours. I went along to Asda today. And to be fair, the queues are a bit bigger than normal, but there doesn't seem to be much panic buying. I'm not seeing people bulk buying and fighting with each other over the Andrex and sort of stuff like that. But the reason why we panic buy, and again, this is something you can discuss with your friends or your family, it's one of our humanistic self-preservation mechanisms. All right, it is designed to keep us alive. And I give a slight introduction to this the other day when I was talking about, was it Conor McGregor? I can't remember. But what I said was, picture yourself. Has everybody on the chat here, has everybody been on holiday and you've went on a plane before? Yeah, so everybody's been on some type of plane. All right, and when you go on a plane, what is the first thing that they do when they shut the doors and they're about to take off? They give you the safety brief. All right, and then within that safety brief, and everybody's probably aware of the sort of safety brief that I'm talking about, is that they will give you a brief about where your safety documentation is, about where your pamphlet is, about where your life jacket is, what you ought to do in event of emergency, a crash landing on sea. Yeah, and then they'll do the little dance that they do, and they'll show you the exits and show you where the lights are, etc., etc., which is cool. But so my background was aviation. All right, my background was aviation. I spent 7 years in the RAF as aircrew, and we done some experiments with various organisations in the civilian world, Virgin, British Airways, such like. And a self-preservation behaviour will appear, will appear, and this is absolutely guaranteed, when your safety is threatened, when you think you're going to die. That amygdala will fire, that hippocampus will kick off, that hypothalamus will speak to the adrenal glands. The adrenal will prepare you to kill in order for you to survive. So, for example, in an aircraft, if that aircraft was to ditch, if that aircraft was to crash in the sea, if the water was to start coming through the windows, would you wait calmly, bearing in mind you've just crashed into the water, the windows are smashed, the water's starting to pour into the cabin, would you wait in your seat until you are directed by a member of the cabin crew who may or may not already be legging it into the rafts outside, because their self-preservation will be kicking in, for you to be directed? Would you wait in an orderly manner? Would you wait in a queue? Would you help people? No, you wouldn't. If you were on there, either by yourself or with your children, your self-preservation behaviours would kick in. For the majority of people, your self-preservation, and you would stand on anybody to get out. You would smash, punch, kick anybody in order to get out of that plane so you can get into the raft. And now, once you're in the raft, logic, safety, all those emotional balances may come back in. But until that particular time, you will be displaying self-preservation behaviours. It is in our DNA. That's why people survive. That's why we're here. That's why I'm talking to you on a phone now. Because of self-preservation behaviours from generations past, or even my own self-preservation. So, when we are seeing people self-preserve, what I call it, they're buying all the toilet roll, they're buying all the meat, they're doing the sort of panic buying, is what you're looking at is your competition. And your competition in this case is other human beings. There's a resource that you need, that you have identified, rightly or wrongly, is being absolutely of paramount importance to your survival. So I'm going to take that. I want to self-preserve. Dilute it all the way back, and it comes down to self-preservation. So when you see people panic buying, we can make comment on that. But if we were in their position, again, I'm not saying it's right or wrong, I'm saying it is fact. Biology doesn't lie. What you've got is a self-preservation mechanism that kicks in, that makes people act in that way. Just like if you, have you ever been playing with your friends? Again, I don't know if you've ever had this happen to you. I certainly have when I was younger. But let's just say you're at the beach, or you're at the swimming pool, or you are having you're sort of playing a game with your friends, and then, but it's in the pool, it's in the water, and then one of your friends pushes your head underneath the water for a laugh. Remember, for them it's for a laugh, because you are, they're the one with their heads above the water. Yeah. So what we've got here is, it's fun. But then in an instant, in a millisecond, in a microsecond, the moment you can't breathe, it becomes unfunny. It becomes not a game. Your self-preservation mechanism kicks in. And based on that, you will do anything in your power, ripping your friend's arm off, kicking him anywhere it hurts, in order to get your head above water. So again, from hoarding loo roll to buying all the meat to ripping someone's head off because you want to get out of the water, these are all self-preservation mechanisms which are beautifully human. And this is what we're seeing. We are one step away from being animals again. That's the thing I always say in my seminars. We are one step away from being animals, where we haven't got that psychological safety that we're going to survive. We will do anything in order to put that layer, to put that foundation in place, which is then when we can start showing other emotions like care and kindness. But when we think we are going to die, or when we think we are going to, not be preserved, that powerful mechanism kicks in, and that's what we're seeing. So, people can comment on it, and I'm not saying that I don't agree with it. I'm not saying that I do agree with it. What I'm saying is, it is a humanistic reaction, that what we're seeing in supermarkets now is part of our DNA. It's programmed into us. so that we are more likely to survive our competition. So, anything else there? So, until the real leaders appears. Anything else to do with fear? Well, I've experienced a lot of people in a job, very military environment, childish manner, this happens. Yeah, okay. Yeah, so AJ Crazy Game in there. It's not the fire that kills you, it's the panic. Now, this is something that I would like to explain. And I mentioned it in one of my videos about the immune system. Yeah, about the immune system. So what we've got here is the thing called the sympathetic nervous system. Now, the sympathetic nervous system is part of the system that can heighten. It's what we call when we get aroused. Yeah, I'm not talking about cucumbers or anything like that. What I'm talking about is an arousal is a state of the body. Hi from Spain, Bruce, thanks very much. So when the sympathetic nervous system, so what I was talking about before, the parts of the brain that we've got here, that activates us into a state of arousal, so we are prepared for action. Yeah, battle stations, DEFCON 5, whatever you want to call it. But the problem with that, all right, the problem with this is just like we're seeing with the coronavirus now, is that there is an issue that if we have long-term worry, long-term stress, long-term, we don't know what's going on, then from this perspective, yeah, this can play havoc with our immune system and actually reduce our ability to fight the infection of the virus that we're actually worrying about. And the way that it does, it creates chronic stress. So when you constantly worry about something, and you can see when people are fatigued or when they get depressed, etc., this has all got parts to play with it. So when you worry about something, it plays on your sympathetic nervous system. The parasympathetic nervous system is it's almost opposite. You sort of got the yin and the yang. Yeah, it's the opposite one. The parasympathetic nervous system helps the body calm down. It relaxes the body. It puts the body in an emotional balance. But when you are constantly stressed, when you're thinking about stress, so remember, we haven't got the corona here, but we're thinking about it. We're fearful of it. We are worrying about it. Yeah, it's not the corona that's going to kill a lot of people. And I'm not saying stress will, but what I'm saying is the stress will be very unhelpful. The stress that we cause ourselves impacts our immune system. The stress via the stories that we tell ourselves is one of the main reasons why our immune system drops. Yeah, because of all the hormonal action that we've got going in within the body, which is why it's important. I talk about the F or the E game. Is it factual? Is it emotional? So for everybody who's watching now, 86 people, wow. Thank you very much. Yeah, thank you very much for that. What I want you to do is I'm going to play a little game with you now. So I want everybody here to think of a time where something either has happened to you or you thought of something that was unhelpful or there was a bad memory connected to it, all right? Now, this could be that you've sent a text message to somebody and they haven't got back to you. You've got an email and they've got, they've put like 3 exclamation marks on the end rather than the normal one. They've put something in bold. They've spoke to you in a certain way. They've looked at you, your boss has looked at you in a certain way when you've put an idea across to them, let's just say workplace. But something where you felt threatened, yeah? Someone hasn't gone back to you on text message. Yeah, they haven't answered your email. They haven't liked your comment. So what you then do is you create a story in your head. And again, I want you to reflect on a time where you thought something negative and then you started creating stories in your head, because we've all got the ability to create a story. And it tends to be one of the worst case scenarios that it could be. You're boring, they don't like me, they think I'm crap at my job, I'm ugly, they don't fancy me, whatever it may be. And the stories that we create in our head go on and on and on and on. So this is a great time to play what I call the F or the E game. And this helps people, a lot of people, with the clients that I work with on a global basis, to become a more balanced version of themselves by just capturing the stories that we tell ourselves. And again, it's about embracing what we are as humans. Yeah. So for example, if you've ever suffered stress before or unhelpful feelings or, whatever like that, phrase it as you will. There's been some type of story there. And A phrase that we use here is don't judge a book by its cover. You may have heard of that. I don't know if you ever heard of something like that. Don't judge a book by its cover. And where it tends to be used is when people are judging other people. You'll see someone, you'll make a judgment. Now, there's a load of waffle and shit out there about, yes, don't judge a book, but we can't help but judge a book by its cover. We need to judge a book by its cover. We are programmed to judge a book by its cover. We are programmed to make assumptions. We are programmed to make stories up. Yeah, especially where we feel threatened or negative. But the idea of becoming aware of this is that what you can do is get better at recognizing the stories that you tell yourself. All right, this is where the F or the E gear comes in. So when you're playing the F or the E game, what I'd like you to do is, if you're ever feeling stressed, if you're ever feeling down, if you're ever feeling, that like life's getting on top of you, get a bit of paper out and write a line down the middle. Left hand side put F, right hand side put E. And just write down all your thoughts that you're having at that particular moment. And put them in the F column if they're factual. So imagine if I was standing across your shoulder, watching you write it down, and after you had finished writing that sentence or thought or feeling down, and you put it in the F, I couldn't argue with it. And word for word, you've got evidence to back it up that it is 100% factual. That'll go into the F column. Everything else would go into the E column, which is emotion, which is stories, inferences we've added on, emotion that we've added on, fear that we've added on. And sometimes it takes about 2 minutes, and it works on any situation where you're feeling threatened. It really does help you feel more in control of that particular space that you're in. So the F or the E game. So it's right, it's not the fire that'll kill you, it's the fear of the fire. There's a lot of fear that goes on, not just the corona, but in life in general. But one simple tool that I know works on a global basis, absolutely global basis, is the F or the E game. And try that over the next 7 days. Just write down the stories that you're telling yourself inside your head, the thoughts related to that stories. Blank bit of paper, line down the middle, F on the left side, or on the right, E on the right side, and see which is factual or emotional. And 100% I'll guarantee it'll help you feel more balanced in that situation immediately, instantly. Yeah, the efficacy of that tool cannot be underestimated. So hopefully that's one thing that you've learned coming from this video. So let's see. Any other fearful things? Thank you very much, Robbie. Good to have you, sir. Any other fear? We're all this together. The enemy is invisible, and here we are. How do you stop thinking of the stories? Well, one way. Okay, so I think that's a very valid question. How do you stop thinking of the stories? The fact is, you can't. What you can do is you can help those stories be more balanced. You can help those stories. Remember when I said it before about the cinema? Being at the cinema, you're sitting there with your popcorn. You went to see the movie. You are then looking at the movie playing out in front of you. The music's ramping up. You don't know what's behind the door. But then the door opens. Now, you might get scared. That instant transaction, your amygdala may fire. Yeah. But then once you know what's behind the door, you tend to deal with it a little bit better. And that's the idea of factual, research, is that whatever you're thinking about, write it down, F-O-E, and then start looking into it. What is facts? What is emotion? And again, when you start looking into the detail, when you create a space just to breathe and start looking into the thoughts that you're having, that is one of the most powerful tools that anybody will ever come across in order to help you with your thoughts and your feelings. And we all get stressed. We can all get anxious. Yeah. Again, it's not a negative, it's a natural reaction. But there is ways and means of helping you deal with that will allow you to be a better version of yourself. So don't try to not feel those stories. Don't try to stop thinking about this. Don't think of a black cat. Well, I'm thinking about the very thing that I'm trying not to think of. But what you can do is you can help those stories be balanced to, to get that emotional norm, to get that nice zone where you can operate in by finding out the research. And those research, which will be fact, will help you be more. And again, it's not about being optimistic or pessimistic. It's about looking at the emotion, seeing what stories you've told yourself, seeing how much you've climbed up your ladder, and then with factual research and space to breathe and calm down, you can slowly, start coming down into that middle area. And the middle area is always the best place to be because that's where the facts lie. So hopefully that's a tool that you can use as well. Here's behind the bills about, easy if I died. Yeah, so again, that's a very personal one, and thank you for sharing that. Where you've got, a situation where someone has been financially in distress, where there's been bills to pay, where they got slightly behind on their payments. And again, a lot of the thoughts that we have, and some people unfortunately don't catch that in time, is where people can, how can I put it? You create a story to look for an easy option, the easy way out. And some people, unfortunately, that story becomes so powerful, they actually go ahead with that choice. But again, I would refer you back to the F or the E game. When we get, now again, there's some chemical imbalances in the brain, and stress can cause certain, reactions that need help. They need professional help. But talking can solve quite a lot. Becoming aware of your thoughts and feelings can't solve everything, but it can solve quite a lot. So again, I will refer you back to the F or the E game. If you ever find any stories created inside your head that you become aware that are unhelpful, that are stressing you, that are introducing or heightening your anxiety levels, bring that F or the E game in there. Try it over the next 7 days. Please try it if you're finding anything fearful. And just put, F, what are the things what are the chapters of the story that I'm telling myself? Are they factual or are they emotional? You'll be amazed how much goes into the emotion column. You'll be amazed how much stuff you make up. Because again, that is the beautiful thing about being humans. We start creating these narratives inside our head and we just go up, up, up and up. The psychology. Okay, guys, so is there anything else more on fear? Because that's what this session was tonight. Again, apologies for it not going well on the laptop. I don't know what happened there. I will try to rectify that for next week, obviously. Lewis, thank you very much for that, mate. I appreciate it. Hopefully I've given everybody some information here. What I would like to do is, if you haven't, can you please connect me on my message above? Graham, I can't see your messages because they're on this chat on my mobile phone. It just goes up and up and up. If you haven't connected with me on Instagram, it would be great. So if you go to Believingbruce 360 and connect with me on Instagram there, send me a message, because what I'll start doing is through those messages on my Instagram, again, that's Believingbruce 360, I'll start to schedule some questions that I'm going to answer on next week's show. So I'll give one more question here, because I'm aware that I've got my wife and kids downstairs. All this is making me lazy. Is it normal to feel? Oh, absolutely. So last question. Is it normal to feel fear at certain times without actually knowing why you're feeling it? Yes. And what I would say is, at this particular time, when anybody feels fear, so for anybody still listening now, when you're feeling fear, is that it's either A, present, or B, you're thinking of something. That is the only time you will feel fear. People talk about a gut instinct or a middle eye or a third eye, all right? And there is some research that backs up that your cerebral system is connected via really strong nerves and emotional connections to your gastrointestinal tract, which is why we get the phrase gut instinct, all right? But if you ever feel something, never try to brush it away. It could be unhelpful if you try to brush it away. But what you should do is start looking into it. Say, okay, where's this come from? Where's this feeling? Where's this urgency come from? Where's this anxiety coming from? And again, a lot of it can be associated by the stories that we tell ourselves inside of our heads. So never try, just like I said before, don't judge a book by its cover. Accept the fact that we are human. Accept the fact that we get scared. Accept the fact that we get anxious. Yeah, all of this is beautifully human. It's, through societal language and culture, we've almost pinged these emotions as negative, as or unhelpful, as or weak or something, and they're not. They are beautifully as human as being energetic, as being positive, and all this type of stuff. So feel threats, feel fear, and let yourself feel it in that moment, because we can't not feel it. But then what would be really good is in that particular moment, if you start becoming, okay, where did this story come from? What was the trigger? What was the starting KPI, if you will, for my feelings, for this story to start being created inside my head? And again, I'll refer to the F or the E. In fact, if everybody wants to join in next week, on my show, as well as connecting with my Instagram, like I said there, Believingbruce 360, send your messages. What I'd like to do is, if you want to trial that F or the E game out, I'll put an example on my Instagram page straight after this webcam. And again, trial it out on any particular situation where you've started to feel fear. Draw the line. F on the left-hand side, E on the right, factual or emotional. And with all the feelings, all the thoughts that you're starting to build up in your head, then put them on this bit of paper and see just how much ends up in that E. So again, when you feel something, it hasn't come from nowhere, all right? Those feelings don't come from nowhere. So embrace them, acknowledge them. Yeah, let them in. Let them reside with you for a little bit. But then start digging into them and say, well, why am I feeling this? What stories am I creating? How far have I moved up my ladder? And once you become aware of that, I'm not saying everything's going to be great. I'm not saying anything's going to be brilliant. What I'm saying is you're going to be more balanced. And if you're more balanced based on facts rather than emotion, then you're probably going to have a better version of you. So, hopefully, 51 minutes. Wow. Didn't expect it to go for that long. Hopefully, give us a thumbs up if you've enjoyed it. Please leave some comments in there. Really, really appreciate everybody. I think we had sort of 91 people there at the height. Very, very humbled that you've all decided to tune in. I will remember everybody who come on the first live stream. You will all be welcome to the big party next year when hopefully it's gone off, because I will be committing to one of these per month. One of these per week. And I'm going to get more technology and stuff as this goes on. Obviously, the technology didn't work as it was meant to do, but that happens. And again, I didn't get anxious about it. I got excited about it because learning is a beautiful thing. So hopefully I've added some stuff, the F or the E game. Become aware of the stories that you're telling yourself inside your head. Connect with me at Instagram at Believingbruce 360. Leave your questions there. And hopefully I will see you all next week. Now, how do I actually end this live stream? Thank you very much.